Welcome to Star Citizen. There are plenty of things that I, wish I had known. And one of the more important ones for me is what kind of weapons to use. These days, it doesn't matter that much. You can get a weapon you want, you can try looting the dead bodies, checking their inventories or just some boxes, if you're doing bunkers or wherever you are and whatever you do. But there are still quite common weapons that you may want to keep your eyes open the first time you're, engaging first-person opponents, NPCs. Any weapon carried by hostile or friendly NPCs will actually do. But you do find more of these nine-tailed gang members than you do find bunker guards. The most common weapon you will find at the hands of the hostiles will be P4AR. It does come with a 4 times magnifying scope that is pretty decent for medium, close, and even long ranges. And the compensator will offer enough stability with the scope to be viable from medium to long ranges, even for semi-small bursts. It is the likeliest weapon that you will find in the hands of the Ninetales. Probably around half or perhaps slightly less of all the Ninetales killed, or all the Ninetales wearing medium armor, will drop that weapon. Most consider it pretty good. Personally, I think it's decent enough. But in close ranges like the bunker, it's not my ideal option. It's not at all a bad weapon, especially with these attachments. Now, if we would remove these, the weapon would be significantly hampered. The recoil would be bigger, and of course, without the scope, the metal sights would be more annoying to use. There was a time where I really preferred the C54 SMG. Now, I truly like this in the bunkers. It's got 50 round magazine, it's got a red dot sight, reflex sight, it's got a compensator once again, and it has really high fire rate. That's why I like this weapon. Sadly, I have to say this weapon is not that common these days. You will find it from the light armored NPCs, they're light armored Ninetales, that are roaming about. So you still can loot them, but you are also equally likely to find unarmored Ninetales, which will most likely drop you a Custodian. Now, Custodian is equally good to this weapon, but I really don't prefer using the stock variant that drops here, mostly because it doesn't have a compensator. With a weapon like this, you do want a compensator to reduce your recoil, because it has such a heavy rate of fire. The reflex sight on this weapon is a bit more annoying than the metal sight, I have to say, so I might even remove it when I feel like it. Doesn't really add much, it's just a reflex sight, it gives you a thought, it doesn't give you any magnification or anything else. For the last, we have FS9, light machine gun. It doesn't have any attachments, but it's still pretty decent enough. It's got a huge magazine and it will do great. It drops from heavily armored Ninetales soldiers. You can equally get a chance of shotgun being dropped, but you want to avoid shotguns because they're such a waste of space. This is probably the most sought after weapon dropped by the Ninetales soldiers. It has 120 round magazines. The heavy armored NPCs carrying it have 2 extra magazines, and with 3 magazines you can, or even 2, you can pretty much clear the 4 waves in the bunker, perhaps even more if you know what you're doing. But there may only be a handful of NPCs that drop this weapon and its ammo. So the most common still is the P4. But if you can get your hands on this one, it might just be the best. It might not be the most common, but it's the one you might want the most. The heavy rate of fire with a big magazine just makes this weapon great. You don't even need the compensator, you don't need the sights, just spray and pray. But just as I said in the start, you can actually use whatever weapon you want. There's a chance that you will find its ammo, if not in the boxes, then looting the chest pieces of the dead soldiers that are nearby friendlies or hostiles. Occasionally even the leg armors, because sometimes it spawns on different parts. So you don't really need to have any preference, you don't need to seek after the most common weapon anymore. Back in the old days, it was just great to have P4AR. It was necessary because there weren't that many different weapons going about, there wasn't that much ammo going about, and you knew that weapon was solid when you picked it up, and every second NPC pretty much gave you that ammo. Plus, if you had your own weapon, you always knew you could pick that up as a secondary or carry it as a secondary, and there was no need to worry about finding ammo, ever. So, the most common still is P4AR. What you might want the most from the hostile NPCs is FS9, and also the C54 will do quite fine because it has such a good burst of fire that I actually prefer it over P4AR in these bunkers. I hope this gave some insight to the most common or common weapons that there are. Anyway, thanks for watching.